Beware the Jabberwocky, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jub bird and shun the fumous Bandersnatch. Hello and welcome to the Bottled Imp, exploring the realms of fantasy. Oh yes, we are. And today we're going to be exploring Jabberwocky. Now this is a 1977 film by Terry Gilliam, if that's how you pronounce his name. Gilliam? I've always pronounced it Gilliam, but apparently that's wrong. 1977 film. And I have vague memories of this film. I was 5, I think, when this film came out. So I didn't watch it when it first came out at the cinema, but I do remember watching it when I was about 13. And I've got memories of certain scenes, but I couldn't remember the whole film, and I was interested. It intrigued me. Well, did it live up to its expectations? Let's find out. Loosely based on Lewis Carroll's Jabberwocky poem that first appeared separately, and then he put it into the sequel of Alice in the Wonderland? What is it? Alice in Wonderland, that's it. There's no the. Alice in Wonderland. He put it into the sequel, which is Through the Looking Glass. And the poem isn't particularly a long poem, but it's one of these nonsense poems that was very popular back in the day. And therefore, lots of the words are made up, but it is about slaying a Jabberwocky, this mythical beast. And so that inspiration, Terry Gilliam has run with that. He's thought, that would make quite a good film and a good plot. And it does feature, that's what I'm going to say, there is 2 main plots. One is, yes, trying to track down this Jabberwocky, and the setting is in the Dark Ages. So, again, it's medieval. He does do a great job at capturing the sort of filth and the dirt and the grime of the setting of the Dark Ages. So it really does evoke that period. And one thing to note, which I over the years they've stopped doing this, but all the actors' teeth were rotten in this film. They did the makeup really well, because obviously back then they probably all were rotten teeth. So that was really noticeable, because nowadays when they do fantasy films or TV series, they don't really do that to the teeth. So all the teeth look really too clean. Just a little detail, but it does make a difference, especially nowadays, the comparison. So the plot, as I say, one of them is to do with slaying this Jabberwocky that is terrorising a kingdom. And the king, King Bruno the Questionable, he is, advised, and people start, they're living in fear. So he decides that it would be best for the kingdom if they hold a jousting tournament to find, to the death, mind you, to find a champion, a knight that is going to go out and slay this mythical creature, this Jabberwocky. And that is, I would say, one of the plots. The other plot is, and this is debatable whether one's main and one isn't, but this one is probably more the main plot, which is Michael Palin. He plays a character called Denis Cooper, and he is the son of a cooper. And a cooper is somebody who makes barrels, and his dad is the cooper. He makes barrels as a living, that's his craft. And there's a nice little gag in there where Michael Palin's character, Dennis, he's not really interested in making the barrels, but he likes to work out how to do things more efficient. So he's an efficiency officer, if you like. So a job that I would imagine doesn't really exist back in the Dark Ages. And that's the juxtaposition. That's the comedy bit there. So his dad is actually very disappointed with his son because he's not gone into the trade. And without spoiling it too much, Michael Palin, he has to go off and seek his fortune elsewhere. The other little plot strand in there is that there's a subplot between him and there's a girl called Griselda, who is a big, fat, horrible, obnoxious woman who's they're about 20 years old. And Michael Palin's character Dennis really loves her. He's really sweet to her. They basically live in a swamp, and he rows in a rowboat to her just to see her face on the evening. And she kind of totally ignores him and is rude to him, and basically they think they're better than he is. But again, that's a nice little comedy touch. So he says, I'm going off to seek my fortune, and when I'm back, we're going to get married and we're going to live happily ever after. So his main quest that he wants to do, he just wants to kind of make money and live a normal life and marry and have children. And as you can imagine, it's not going to be as straightforward as that, because he does go to the city, manages to get into the city, but there's hardly any work. And this is one of the main themes, is about being an accidental hero. Not necessarily a reluctant hero, but an accidental hero. He's not setting out to go and kill this Jabberwocky. He's just setting out to seek, employment. And his main skill is efficiency. So this concept of actually just things happen to you, you land on your feet, I found very intriguing. And strangely enough, the way they did it, the way they filmed it, and the way it's written, you could believe that. You could believe that somebody goes through life and they just somehow just are very fluky and land on their feet without trying too much. The character, Michael Palin, I mean, he's always a nice... In fact, I've met Michael Palin at a book signing. He was genuinely a really nice guy. And that is the character that he plays. And so you want him to succeed, even though he's accidentally succeeding. It doesn't matter. You don't think, he should be working hard for this success. You only get what you deserve. Well, actually, because he's such a nice guy, you don't mind. Which leads into the second theme. Because he's an expert in efficiency, the kingdom, the King Bruno, that's all bogged down with bureaucracy. And the level of the merchant class, or the lords, I think it's the lords and the ladies, they're more interested in selling their goods. It must be the merchants. But anyway, very rich and wealthy, influential people. They're the ones that love all the bureaucracy, because that's a form of control. And because this Jabberwocky is terrorising the woods nearby, and people are frightened, and therefore it's good for the economy, because people aren't going into the woods, so therefore firewood becomes scarce, and therefore it's a commodity. If chickens are being eaten by this monster, then chickens are going to rise in price because there's less of them. So it's within the interest of the rich and powerful to actually keep the Jabberwocky alive and not have it hunted down. So again, that's kind of a nice sort of underlying theme that runs through the film, all to do with commerce. And in fact, doing a bit of research, the plague in England, I think it was the 13th, 14th century, that had the same effect. All the merchants wanted the plague to carry on. Obviously, they didn't want to catch the plague themselves, but it meant that workers were scarce. So therefore, the food was scarce. Things were scarce. So therefore, if you've got something, it's worth more. So that it was based on a bit of truth behind that whole kind of wanting fear to still be in place. There is, as I say, the accidental hero theme carries on through. I'm not going to give any plot spoilers away. And what I found with the film was it, to my memory, as I say, I watched it when I was about 12, 13. The pacing had a little bit of problem with it. In places it slowed a bit too much, and some of the scenes were a bit kind of not necessary, let's put it that way. The plots were sort of a bit too thin, certainly by today's standard. They're not complicated enough, and I did find it a little bit padding, just a little bit of padding. But the good saviour to this is obviously the humour. It's Terry Gilliam. He's a Monty Python member. It's going to be funny, and there are very genuinely funny bits in this. Unfortunately, for me, it's my own personal preference, it felt like a Monty Python film, but it wasn't quite as good. I wanted more of the Monty Python team in there, and there's some cracking actors. I mean, of a certain age, you'll know these names. Harry H. Corbett, who was in Steptoe and Son, fantastic actor. Warren Mitchell, who played Alf Garnett, again, brilliant actor. John Le Mesurier, I don't know how you pronounce his name, John Le Mesurier, who was in Dad's Army, he's in it. Max Wall, who's a big icon in I think it's vaudeville or musical comedy, big comedian, he's really good in it. John Bird from Bird and Fortune, I think, in the 80s and 90s, very big on TV, very funny. In fact, he's still doing a lot. I think he was in the thick of it, actually. And Brian Glover, very brilliant actor. Even Gordon Kay from LOLO crops up in it. Not a lot, but he's in it. And then even Darth Vader himself is in it. David Prowse is in it. He plays one of the knights. You don't actually see his face, but I read on the credits and I thought, oh yeah, of course. He's big, he's tall. It could well be him. So there's a lot of, to me anyway, famous people that are good, solid comedy actors. But I just wanted the rest of the Monty Python team in it. And incidentally, when it was sold in America, when it was advertised in America, they did call it Monty Python's Jabberwocky. And Terry Gilliam didn't want that because it isn't really anything to do with Monty Python. But it does share the same sort of sense of humour, dark humour. It's very silly at times, but that's good. It's good fun. And interestingly to note that it does fall between Monty Python, Monty Python, the two films, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. That was Terry Gilliam's first film. Then he did this one, and then he did Time Bandits. And I've watched all three of those films, and you can see the development. You can see his directoring. Is that a word? Directoring? You can see him learning his trade more and getting better. So for me, I would say out of the three, this one is slightly the weaker of the three. But nevertheless, I would still check it out. It's still got a lot going for it. And if you haven't seen my Time Bandits review, check that out. Because personally speaking, I'd say that is a better film. So if you had a choice, I'd see that one. And this has made me want to review Monty Python and the Holy Grail though. So I'm going to be doing that. Check this one out. It's a lot of fun. It's a solid film. I wouldn't say it's a brilliant film, but it's definitely a solid film. So check out the Jabberwocky. As usual, thank you so much for watching our review of Jabberwocky. You can check us out on Facebook and all the usual social places that you can check people out at. What's the other one? Twitter. That's it. Yep. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Check it out. If you have watched it or you're going to watch it, leave some comments. We always read those. Until the next time, fellow imps, beware the Jabberwocky.